Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Dr. Music Podcast. I am here today with the original drummer for Hootie and the Blowfish, key songwriter for the band, Jim Soni Sonefeld. The Hootie and the Blowfish debut album, of course, we all know, Cracked Rear View, one of the best-selling albums in the history of music, upwards of 21 million copies, something like that now. We can't even keep up with it. The album went to #1 on the Billboard chart, won 2 Grammys. The band gained financial security with that record, and also maybe brought in a little bit of trouble with chemicals and things like that. And we're going to talk about things like that too. Jim found his way out of that darkness and shares his inspiring story of faith and recovery in his new book, Swimming with the Blowfish, Hootie, Healing, and One Hell of a Ride. Jim also has an EP of new solo music that reflects his Christian faith, and it's called Remember Tomorrow. I wanted to get into that with you for sure, Jim, and thank you so much. Welcome to the show. Thank you.
Glad to be here with a fellow Napervillian.
Yeah.
Napervillian. And yeah, love talking about music and books and even old music. I had some precarious influences that really never ended up projecting me towards the sound that Hootie had. But
Mhm.
the first time I found out about you was a friend recently forwarded a newspaper article, and it was about Judas Priest. This guy who sent it to me, our percussionist, said, "Hey, this guy's from Naperville. Aren't you from Naperville?" And I said, "Yeah, but more importantly, I got to talk to this guy about Judas Priest." One of my first concerts to go to as a child in the 70s. And I've got a great picture of me with my baseball style half sleeved point of entry tour, Judas
Nice.
Priest from like 78, maybe
Wow.
79.
Awesome. Awesome.
Um,
Yeah, that was one of my favorite bands. But and I loved hearing that. In the book you mentioned the fire, and we're going to get into that a little bit, but you mentioned what's on your turntable, and it's Rush's Hemispheres, and I'm
yeah,
thinking, this is somebody who listens to all music. There is no specific genre that you close yourself into, which is reflective of what you've created, I think. There's a musicality to you that is really that's special to enhance your life with all those different sounds, isn't it?
I believe I am a little gifted that I have my ears open to a lot of things. And I think people that listen without prejudice, you can have your taste, not to say anyone can't, but when you listen with a little wider perspective, you get the gift of so many different styles of music. And I don't think I had this when I was a kid. I think I had some musical prejudices like, oh, I don't like his hair. Oh, the girls like them. I don't like
Sure.
that band, or that's too this. But really, I also, at the same time as having those prejudices, I was also fairly liberated. I mean, I was listening to an AM station for the early years of my life, WLS,
Yep.
and it was the AM pop hits. So that was a little limiting, but I also had my mom and dad who had record collections and older siblings. And I kind of was open to vibing anything out, whether it was, I don't know, the Southern rock stuff that I was really influential to me growing up, and the pop stuff, whether it was Barry Manilow or Neil Sedaka. And it wasn't really till I got to high school where it started getting heavy,
Right.
that the hard stuff came in. But then again, college, by the time I started experimenting with some different mind altering drugs, I suddenly was listening to a really weird variety of music.
And you mentioned Naperville, and for people who don't know, Naperville, Illinois, is where I sit right now. Uh, that is where you grew up a lot of your years, about 10 years, right?
My formative years, yeah, certainly.
Yeah. So we have a lot in common there, and we know the ins and outs of this area, which is really, really cool. And it is prevalent in the book, which was really fun for me, being here for 20 years and familiar with the area, to hear you talk about Naperville and talk about it endearingly. It was really, really nice. It was an important part of your life, wasn't it?
It shaped me. And I mentioned this when I was in Naperville recently at a bookstore event. I said, my wife gave me these words. She said, "It's your DNA. It's your DNA." And no, I know technically it's not my physical DNA. It's my cultural DNA. Certainly, when you live in sort of the edge of what was cornfields at the time, and it was expanding, there was a lot of room to roam. And we certainly did that as kids. And that was before we got phones to put in our face to give us so much other information. But nature was kind of a big thing for us, and getting out and stretching our wings. The leashes were long for kids in the 70s. There was no way to find out where you were, and if you went somewhere, it was assumed you went there.
Right.
But if something happened there, you couldn't always call for a rescue, like is so easy today. And so, yeah, some of the music culture hit home with me. I was influenced by some of the great Midwest bands like Cheap Trick and Styx and REO Speedwagon. These are bands that were important. And I took my first drum lessons at Naper Music on Ogden Avenue. And that's a little bit in the book about that too. So yeah, I mean, there really were some things that made me who I am.
Yeah, and it was really cool to read. Like I say, for me sitting here, I know where Ogden Avenue is. I know that. That was pretty cool. And it's a warm book, much like Hootie music. Uh,
Yep.
it's a warm blanket. You want to wrap yourself in it. It's nice, it's comfortable, it feels great. This book has that same feeling. Was that something you intended when you started writing? Did you want to keep that warm feeling? And that I listened to it in the car. I got the audiobook, which you read. I would urge everybody to get that. It's fantastic. I felt like I had a friend with me on my way to Kenosha, which is almost 2 hour drive. I'm listening to the book, and it's this warm feeling. Warmth is really what comes to mind. I felt like you were in the car there, and I was just traveling with a buddy. It was really great. Was that an intent when you started writing?
It actually was not warmth, and was probably not something I conceived of. What I did want to do is try to just connecting on some human level that of love, and sometimes the commonality of music, of course, is there too. So I try and use those things. And when I began writing, I had a lot of years behind me in sort of that soul searching, which takes place in recovery. So I had realized around 2004 or five that I couldn't drink like a normal human being, and also had a healthy drug addiction. So I sought help for that, and I probably spent 12 years in that daily, making sure I knew who I was and who my God was, so and how to treat people around me better. That connection is what I was sort of seeking in a book, because I had spent a dozen years in the rooms and connecting with people about their stories. And there's a lot of hope in those places. There's a lot of faith that you see somebody else getting well, you might be able to do it yourself if you do the work. And so that's probably more what I had in mind in connecting to people and giving a story that gives others hope.
And that definitely comes through in the book. But that was part of the warmth for me as well.
Yeah.
It's just a loving thing. It's a wide open conversation. It's very conversational. You don't talk at the reader, you talk with the reader. And there's a little bit of a difference with this book that I don't get often with autobiographies. It was really, really comforting. How was this book written? did you talk into a recorder? Or did you have a writer that you sent audio files to that typed it up? Did you pack away all by yourself? How
uh,
was that? How did you actually form the book?
I the first thing that happened was I had picked up a journal. It was an art book, but it's an 11 by 14 thick journal that for some reason I decided walking out the door to go record what would become Cracked Review in '94. I decided I would, in case I never got back to LA where we were going, I would journal my days in Los Angeles. We were planning on spending a few months there. So I had found this journal and wanted to type it into my computer in around 2015. I started transposing it, looking at my old cursive writing and my hilarious thoughts from that time. And I transposed them into a little Word file and thought, wow, that's kind of could be a basis of a little story about something that only basically 6 or 7 people experienced because
Yep.
it was Cracked Review. There was no press, there was nobody following us to capture the moment on video. So I thought about that for a few years and thought I think I could have a more valuable story to write that's not only Hooting the Blowfish, but maybe my sober journey, my spiritual journey, and then a twist at the end, which happens when we reconvened to have a reunion tour in 2019. So
Mm.
first, it starts by putting a journal into my computer. But when I sit down in 2017 on my birthday, October 20th, to start officially, I finally get courage up to say, I'm going to start writing this book today. I spend most of the time between my living room couch, our kitchen counter, our other TV room, and my bed for over 3 years, pouring it all out. And it's on my laptop. I moved from one file to another file. I'm not very good with technology, so I don't know what I'm doing. I'm always paranoid of deleting it and like,
Right.
but I write it out the old-fashioned way. And my wife is my greatest sounding board during that period. She's a stay-at-home mom, and she's here with me. We have 5 kids in the house for the most part, still at that time. And so I just start writing, and the people who encouraged me along the way, when they were hearing what I was going for, they all told me the same thing, which was keep writing, keep
Yeah.
writing, and then keep writing. And when you get to about, you know, a certain amount of words and you think you have an ending and a beginning and a middle, call me.
Man, that is a long process, and it feels good as a fan, as a reader, to hold the book in my hands. Knowing that you put so much of your life into it is special. It really is.
Thank you. I'm glad has that effect on people. Honestly, it's wanting to connect is what I wanted to do. And so when I hear back that there was a part of the story, part of the journey that touched some people, whether it's a connection with Naperville or having to get sober or life altering occurrences. It just, that's the gold for me, is to be able to hear that back.
Yeah, and it's a special book. You mentioned your wife. She had a big view of your life, as well as Mark, of course. For those who don't know, your wife Laura was married to Mark, your guitar player in who
Yeah, yeah.
um, for a number of years. So there's, for her to look over that, there's an inside view for her as well to help recall things it's a great sounding board, like you said. So that that all comes through in a great read for sure. Tell me about the apartment fire, because I think that's important. A lot of people aren't aware of how exactly it all came together for you with Hootie and the Blowfish. um without this apartment fire, none of this might happen, right?
Well, it was certainly a so I live in an apartment. It's in my last sort of semester of college. I've taken the slow route of the 6 year plan, and it's I'm in a band in at the University of South Carolina, and I'm aware of this other band that exists called Hootie The Blowfish, but I'm on a different course. I'm wanting to write music, and so a crazy thing happens in I think February of '89 is that I have to run out of my apartment one morning while the place is burning up, and so it was like a 4-story apartment complex, and it started under my bedroom, and so as devastating as that was, and not great to leave your drum set, which you were borrowing from somebody, and your album collection, and your only acoustic guitar that you'd also borrow from somebody up there. It sort of puts me on a trajectory to re-examine my life, and I start doing that quickly by going to the place where all people examine their lives, a bar. And so I go out to check out some new music a day or so later, and here's this guy on stage that I recognize from my audio production class, and it's Mark Bryan. And I'm watching Hootie and the Blowfish, and Mark starts passing the hat to say, "Hey, everybody in the audience, which is paid to see Hootie and the Blowfish, my friend out in the audience, the drummer for this other band, lost his apartment, and we're going to pass the hat. So, put a buck in there, and maybe it'll help him out because he doesn't have anything." And I was so thankful and just touched by that. Well, though I was touched, and I could certainly have used the $34 that ended up in the sweaty hat, most importantly, a few months later, when they were auditioning for a new drummer, I thought, oh, that band, the guys that use their, influence on stage to help me, who they weren't even that friends with, that's a good sign. I like that. Yep. So I auditioned, and we hit it off well. I learned all the songs. They're kind of a cover band that wants to write originals. And they let me in. They say, "This is great. I think you'll work out fine." And, without that fire, I don't think I'm standing at that bar and getting that good feeling. And maybe I make the audition, but I didn't have the connection that I would have, that I got from having a house fire and a band that was showing me how to treat one another. We help each other when we're down. And so it was a beautiful connection.
Yeah. Really a special thing. And so whenever anything happens to you like a fire, think that it might be a positive thing. How does that happen? That's pretty amazing. Really, really great story. I loved hearing that. And again, warmth. There's just a loving vibe that goes through this band, through the sound, through the people. The fact that you and Mark still exist in that strange situation that you have, unique situation, you're just good people that care for each other. It's a really wonderful thing, and everybody in the band is like that. There's no it's just really unique. I've seen a lot of things. I've seen the documentary that you made back in the day, Summer Camp with Trucks, was it?
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's just you guys existing with no ego, or it's just it's really unique. I've seen a lot of bands existing together, trying to make it, trying to entertain, and it can be difficult. You guys seem to really have a handle on it. When you're writing this book, you don't throw anybody under the bus. There's really very little negativity in this book, which was really, really a feel-good thing for me too. I read these things, and a lot of times they're very ugly. Did you leave things out like that? Or was it all, just it's sunshine and rainbows? I mean, it really is. It's amazing how you guys do that. Was it like that? Did you leave some things out to not make the book negative? Was that part of it?
Well, we had some blissful years, to be honest. I mean, from '89 when I joined to getting signed and, and making an album that could have failed just as easy as it could have succeeded. It wasn't necessarily a time to put out an album like that, except it did go a little bit against the grain of music at the time. So maybe that was a good thing. But we always had good times. I mean, our difficulties were small for many years because we had low expectations. We were easily satisfied. We had a van. We had day jobs for a long time. We could just barely pay rent and own a van and feel comfortable enough. But we enjoyed making music. We enjoyed each other's company. We had sports in common. We had watching sports in common. We had our love of beer drinking and hanging out in clubs. And so as our fan base grew and we finally inched towards a record deal, there wasn't a whole lot to argue over. I mean, money is the thing that people argue over, or notoriety. But when you're just four guys and you're all just trying to do your best and you all are contributing, there's nothing to argue about. So it really wasn't until probably the difficulty of what happened with fame where it becomes a little unbalanced. And I just touch on it a little bit. It wasn't so big of a deal where the world wants a leader. The world wants someone to be the representative, the voice, the opinion of a big band. So when we got big, that naturally fell on Darius's shoulders. But he didn't always love that. That wasn't his natural position. He's a natural lead singer for certain, but he wasn't even comfortable with the attention on him. And then when it became negative attention, it hurt even more. So we struggled through some of those years trying to figure out who we were. But even those years we got through, honestly, when we had a place to sleep, a beer to drink, and some entertainments, and we still had a fan base, there just wasn't a whole lot to go through. And I had some great advice from one of my editors, and he had read one of my early manuscripts, and he felt like I was beefing a little bit too hard on how this was difficult in the recording session, or the writing was difficult because they didn't like my ideas and I felt voiceless, or we weren't getting gigs, or the record company sucked, all these things. And he finally came back when we were doing it, and he said, that's not landing well. And I don't think that's what your audience wants to hear, is a whiny freaking dude who sold 15 or 20 million records. I thought, well, but it's what happened. He said, well, that's fine. But instead of, getting upset and blaming it on others, including your bandmates, why don't you try and make your bandmates your heroes? Why don't you rewrite this and try and make them your heroes, or the heroes? And I thought, first, because I want to be the hero. That gets in the way of me. Then secondly, I said, I'll try it. And when I went back to do some rewrites, I didn't have to fib. I didn't have to make stuff up. But what I had done, I'd forgotten that there were even beautiful moments on the way down. There were beautiful moments when we weren't getting along. There were still great things, and I chose to write about those things. And it ends up giving you the warmth. It ends up giving people a feeling that this was a happy band. And honestly, who wants to hear all the shit? It's not a tell-all book. There's some incredible tell-all books out there. If you're looking, it's like there's some great ones. There's disasters, but I just got on with my buddy Steve Gorman, the former drummer from Black Crowes, and he wrote one of the best tell-all band books that exists out there, and about his time with that band. And so they have a huge value, but that just wasn't ever going to be authentic to me to throw the mud.
It did. That wouldn't feel right. Really. Seriously. I think Hootie music in particular is a cultural phenomenon. It really, really is. I define the time with those songs. And they're warm, they're friendly, they're loving, they're embracing. It's what I love about it. And it came at such a dark period in music, really. With the grunge era, everything was kind of really dark. I love the stuff. I thought there were fantastic bands in that era. But Hootie's was different. Mom and grandma could listen to Hootie, which is why you guys took some heat, some flack for being
Yeah.
that band. Uh, you know, um, but that was special in that time. And I wanted to ask you why, you guys are just like the greatest bar band ever. You know what I mean? You guys are just shorts and sandals, t-shirt, hat kind of band, playing great music. This isn't a band that hits huge, usually. Why do you think, what was it about Hootie that sold 21 million albums? I've seen other bands similar to Hootie that do okay, but not this. This was extreme. Why do you think that is?
Well, you notice there's not a chapter in my book entitled "Why Did Hootie Get So Big?" Because I don't have that information. I don't know. I mean, I've through the years, and as the years went by, and we went into dormancy with Darius's country career. There were years that went by that I honestly thought, wait, was it a mirage? Did that really happen? Why did that happen? To some degree, because not because our rise was quick, but because it felt like the stay at the top was too quick for me in my greedy little heart. I felt like maybe we should have done some things different. And then every time I start thinking about that, I'm like, wow, what would we have done different? What put out Cracker Review, then wait 4 years to starve the audience, and that's no guarantee that works. So the more we what if and and thought back, I don't know if I would have changed the thing, and that also means I don't know how to explain the thing. Certainly, momentum happens in music and culture, and typically it's pretty quick to get knocked back too, which is what happened for us. But even when our peers in music or people from other parts of the world that had microphones in front of them were saying not nasty things about us or just trying to push us down, even then our fan base didn't stop buying records. They didn't ever stop that. And then when it transitioned from CDs, physical CDs, to downloads, they all downloaded Cracked Review and the other stuff. And then when it went to streaming, they're still streaming it. So whatever it is, it's certainly a group with a lot of loyalty and allegiance.
Yeah, and it's great to see because it's special to me, and obviously it's special to a lot of people. I can't imagine life without Hold My Hand. Just really seriously, I just can't.
Thank you.
It's part of my DNA at this point. It was a gift to the world, along with many other songs. So I think it's timeless, is what it is. I listen to that the same way I listened to it back when it came out. It hasn't changed. It hasn't, the song remains the same. It's as good. I like it as much. I don't ever get tired of it, and I don't know how you do that. You probably, as a musician, don't know how that happens. It's just one of those worldly wonders that some things just are timeless.
Yeah. I wish I knew. We tried to rebottle that, of course. That's what you do when you have a chance at a second record or a third record or a fourth, and try like how to capture that magic or that timing. But there's things you can't capture. You can still write great songs that might be meaningful, but you can't capture that perfect timing that we're trying to explain. Why was it in 1995 that the world, or the USA at least, needed this music? Why did this music speak to people's hearts at that time? That we don't know, and so here we are.
And I've I let some people know that I was talking to you today that I know are Hootie fans, is particularly, uh, their album is Fairweather Johnson. They they thought it was an even better record than Cracked Rear View, which I love hearing because you have a catalog of music. It's not all about Cracked Rear View, although that's where the huge success came. So that was great to hear.
Some of the backlash that happened with Cracked Review made people want to love Fairweather Johnson more.
Yeah.
Oh, my internet is unstable. Sorry.
No, that's okay.
Yeah, I think there were a group of people who they probably had Cracked Review, but they were going to make sure that they loved the next record, no matter what it did. I'm that guy too. I love bands' second albums. I love the follow-ups to the big albums because
Right.
I want more, and I know it's there, even if it doesn't get radio airplay. I'll always get that second record from an artist, just to prove that I'm allegiant.
Well, and I think Hootie is a band that you're going to get that sound. You're going to get that same formula. Much like an AC/DC, if you will. When you get an
Yeah.
AC/DC album, you're going to get in it. You know what you're going to get. And I think that is a Hootie trait as well. If you guys ever do another record, I know I'm going to get Hootie, and that's the exciting part about it. Is we're going to get what we like, for sure. It's,
Yeah.
when you hear that early stuff, and you know that it was part of a struggle for you with the alcohol and the drugs, do any of those songs bring you to a dark place? Because it's Hootie is nothing but light to me and so many other fans. But for you, is there anything in in the catalog that brings you to a dark place, or you feel a disconnect with?
I think I definitely in the period where I struggled the most was when we were on our last record with Atlantic, and it was probably 2002, 2003, and I was just struggling with the chemicals and couldn't quite figure stuff out. But that doesn't stop you from having to put out an album or wanting to put out an album. So we were in a cycle that ended up us being in the studio, and we decided to go back to California for our self-titled album called Hootie the Blowfish that came out in 2003. So that was a period where, my drinking had become medicinal and my cocaine use had become habitual. And we finally found ourselves, I was juggling a family at home. And then the question was, am I trying to be away so I can party? Am I
Right.
sad to be away? Yes, because my family's not here. But trying to juggle that whole thing in my mind. But meanwhile, the thing that's controlling me is the drugs and alcohol. It's the thing that's making it's more important to me looking back than anything because I'm making choices to be around that, and it doesn't matter where I am. In fact, so I decide, oh, I need this so badly. I go home to my family and I still need it. So that's the problem. And so we make the self-titled album out in Venice Beach, California. It's a hard time with the label. They're not giving us much love, and we've made some great songs on the record. I feel like it's a strong record, but the process was pretty broken. I couldn't keep regular hours. I couldn't keep clean so I could be focused. We still made some great art. I like don't doubt the album at all, but it was also frustrating looking back because the album couldn't get any of it on the radio.
Yeah.
Even the song we felt like we were really close to pushing out to radio called Innocence, which I thought was a great song. They didn't seem to be helping us anything at all. And we weren't a priority. The next new face, the next new sound had moved in, and it wasn't called Hootie the Blowfish. So the darkness is my personal life and the frustration with the business of music, which David Crosby warns us about in the book.
Mhm.
And so it's both of those things. And there's a couple very personal songs in there too, but they're dark for me. My writing, there were no hold my hands coming out anymore while I was in that dark place. So from 2000, when we put out our sort of third record and fourth and fifth, there's no ha ha sunny day, Jimmy. We're not going to the park to play. We're going to the hood to buy some drugs, and that's
Right.
not a song anybody wants to hear.
Right, right. Especially in the Hootie catalog.
Right.
Maybe another catalog or so.
Grandma may be thinking she doesn't want to listen to the Hootie anymore after that.
You know, you were told about this by the nuns, in
Right?
elementary school, right? And other people, I'm sure. But that doesn't help, does it? Do you think there's a way to get through to kids or is it life? Is that where it takes you? Or, I mean, what got you to that place? Was it the success? Was it just, you were that personality that, you're a push the red button kind of kid? Um,
Yeah.
you know, uh, how do you get to that place? And is there a way to sway our kids from it?
Yeah. That's a great question. I part of it I think is just life and development and the maturation process in people. And but I think being honest is probably the biggest part. And I don't think we've done that very well as a society. And I think a lot of parents have struggled being honest with their kids about drugs and alcohol. I mean, and we put up laws or we put up these walls to say you can't do it or you whatever. And I don't think those are nearly as effective as honest conversations. So my family's been blessed is that we get to have some real honest conversations here. I've had teenagers. We've got five between uh, the families that we've helped raise, and the conversation here was always, "Hey, yeah, there's drugs and alcohol out there. You want to hear what they did to Daddy-O?
Yep.
Do you want to hear my times that I had with them?" Which honestly is not like just the worst horror story because I experimented with them for many years without a ton of consequences. But I guess the part is for me, I don't know. There's some ideas that are hereditary, but mainly what happens if you come to difficulties in life and you don't have either some strong emotional balance or a spiritual life that helps you lean into good teaching or good values, then you're kind of left with your own thoughts and self will. And that's what I got stuck with. Yeah, I'm addicted to drugs and alcohol because I can't deal with regular life. And what keeps working for me is to pour more in my body because it is a temporary relief from it. And obviously, chemicals can't work in the long run like that. And we have to find real answers. And so I think the honest conversation is the best way. We have them over here at our house, and they've worked for our kids. We have a variety of kids who like to do a variety of things,
It's
but
cool.
mainly they know what drugs will do, what certain drugs will do if you want to screw around with them. And there's some very hard lessons that we're seeing now is with the introduction of opioids and the still with the ability for heroin to be a drug of choice for where you thought it was just for the guy under the bridge. It's not anymore. And so we're seeing some very tough results from that. And they've hit very close to home for us. And so we just keep talking about it, and
Yeah.
that's what we can do.
Yeah, yeah, and you say it has hit close to home. Naperville has had quite an issue with it. At
Yeah.
the school that my kids went to, so yeah, it's everywhere, and we need to have discussion for sure. Um, you mentioned Tim Summer in the book. Quite often speak very fondly of him. The A&R guy, of course, at Atlantic that signed you. Um, a huge asset to the band, musically, personally, and professionally, is how you present him. He's written a book as well. Only Want to Be With You. Uh,
Right.
yeah, have you read it?
I sure have.
You have.
Yeah.
Is it is it similar to your take? Did you read it and say, wow, I didn't even know that, or I didn't realize that, or did you just read it and go, uh-huh, 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 was it the same take that you had on the situation? Because it's two different angles. Him supposedly working, I mean, he worked for the label, and of course you're in the band, so there's different angles there. How was his take on it as opposed to yours?
I was excited to read what Tim was going to write because Tim's got a very original and authentic view of looking at art and music, and he always did. That was the surprise that he was the guy that ended up signing Hootie The Blowfish because he was more leaning towards alternative and arty art stuff, and we were a little bit more up the middle. But what I appreciated about his book was that he went deep on some topics because he can, and whether it was talking about with Ray bands, struggle perspective. Yeah, he worked for the label. He didn't represent, but he, signed the band.
Mm-hmm.
So, and he was working so hard for the band and wanted it so hard in the second album and the third album that the label was like, you do work for us, right? and so that was kind of a benefit to us. And when he left, it was tough. I mean, we saw certainly that we didn't have somebody on the inside there. That was difficult for us. But his book is great. I mean, I did. You mentioned, did I learn anything or did I read anything that I didn't know? Yeah, because we did all these interviews individually. So I didn't. When he's asking Mark Bryan questions about his memory, there was things that Mark remembered that I didn't. Same with Dean, and
Right.
really with Darius, because Darius had some big expressions about the Fairweather Johnson time, and it informed me. I was like, dude, I didn't know he was that like anxious to get out off the road or to get out of the spotlight. I just wasn't aware it was that urgent for him, and the book
Right.
informed me. So I loved being informed.
That's cool. That's really cool. Um, let's talk about You Remember Tomorrow. And I don't want to take up your whole day. I want to be respectful of your time. I appreciate you so much. Um, Remember Tomorrow, a Christian record. Um, you didn't like Christian music when you first heard it. So what is this? This is garbage. What didn't you like about your first experience with Christian music, or those early experiences? What turns you off about it, and do you try to avoid those things when you do yours?
I did have some hangups. I tell you, even though I was not necessarily, I mean, I was trying to be, when somebody gave me my first sort of contemporary Christian CD, um, I was certainly sober. So I was looking for a spiritual life. I wanted to understand more a higher power. I wanted a connection to what we call God. And I had some hangups with my old religious upbringing, and there was some disconnect there. But I was trying hard, and but what didn't connect was, okay, you have rock and roll. Rock and roll is based on rebellion, and it means certain things about youthfulness and not necessarily anarchy, but you know, being loud and being proud. And what I couldn't grasp or didn't make sense was like, you've got the softness, to me, the soft and honest, graceful message of Jesus Christ and the New Testament being sung with a Gibson Les Paul distorted, or not all of it's heavy, but I literally, I think I say in the book, I was offended. And it just took a while. And what happened, interestingly, is because I was seeking a spiritual life and a better connection to some God, the lyrics ended up touching me before the music and the connection of the two did. I thought, well, these lyrics are making sense. I like the stories some of these people are telling, not all of it, but I started being intrigued by the way they tell a story, because it's about love, in effect. And some of the things that are biblical references or ritualistic references. I didn't need those as much as the idea that, wait, these people are just singing about love, and it's sometimes dressed up with crosses or Jesus figures and whatever. But I like the love I could understand. That's what I always tried to write about, whether it was broken love or successful love. So that lured me in. And then I noticed that is some pretty great musicality. Some of these guys were really had some slick productions and not perfect productions. I mean, it's catchy. And so I thought it just kept working on me. And next thing you know, I'm singing the melodies. And the next thing I know, I'm sort of at a crossroads of who am I musically? I gotta create. I need to I got remarried and I was in a new place of being a father of more kids, and I love that. But what am I doing musically? So that's when they came together. I said, well, I'm gonna do what those guys are doing because I like what they're singing about. So guys like Chris Tomlin or guys like Mercy Me and David Crowder, these artists were Matthew West. They were writing what I was feeling, which is let's celebrate, let's move towards something positive and hopeful and share that message because that's where I was in life. I was at a place of, having been reborn from the death I was heading to through drugs and alcohol. Like, let's sing this thing. So I just went right to it. I've got a 16 song, or rather it's split up into 3 EPs on the internet, but called Found in Love. And it's straight up Christian. The new album has got a mixture of some Christian messaging, but also just some good, hopeful messaging, like Good to Get Back, which is about coming home, and songs like A Little Revival, which is about finding an inspiration from anywhere. A musical inspiration can be down the street. It can be on the street corner. It can be in the subway. It can be in a lot of places besides a church. And so I try to make this new record a little more accessible. And I've been able to sing those songs to a more broad audience. Songs like Unafraid, which just speaks to having the courage to not let fear get you down. God, who doesn't believe that? Who doesn't need that? So I don't have to say the word Jesus or God in a song for it to be spiritual, in my opinion.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And it's great to see you doing that. And it's because it feels so genuine. And that music is becoming more popular. There's huge Christian festivals now, and they gain a large audience. It's great to see. In a pretty negative world these days, or a troubled world in a lot of ways, we're seeing this positivity grow. So that is, you mentioned hope. There's a great hope in that, and music as a vehicle to bring that positivity is really a wonderful thing. Do you see yourself doing more of this?
I mean, yeah, I like to think my songwriting can be fluid. Where my heart is where I will make music. And so if I'm continue on this path, it's more about trying to share messaging that gives people hope, that celebrates our goodness. I think one of the most commented on songs from this EP is a song called When I See Heaven on Earth. And it's about we're all looking for one thing down here, which is a little peace, a little serenity, because it's a difficult journey in anyone's life. Nobody has a smooth ride. And while there's some Christian messaging that talks about an eternal heaven, and it's supposed to be people getting along and love and calm, I think, why aren't we focusing on that down here? Is
Right.
heaven possible on earth, was my thought. And so this song has been good for people who are saying, we can get caught in the dark stuff. We can get stuck in the 24-hour nonsense news cycle, which spits out more grotesque ideas than anything positive. Or we can start focusing on the goodness. And I started looking around me and like, there are gifts, there are celebrations, there are victories around me. That's what I sing about. So that song, which got some good streaming on Spotify, is about we can overcome this. We're not down for the count. They're not counting us down on the map. We actually have a lot of good shit going on here,
Yep.
people.
Totally, totally. And yeah, it is. It's a great positive message. It's again warm and comfortable and beautiful. It feels like a warm blanket, and that's really great, man. There's so many things in the book that I enjoyed. A quote, money can't buy you happiness, but it sure makes me miserable a hell of a lot easier. Various, that's great. You share things like that. It's really great. Three white guys in an all black band, those things are just fantastic things to read about. I noticed on the Crack Review special thanks, you mentioned somebody named Janine Gilmartin. I
Yes.
did not see her name in the book, but you thank her for being an inspiration in your life and music. Did not see the name in the book. Who was Janine? Is Janine Gilmartin?
She's a girl I dated around after I graduated, when the band was in their earlier days. And she actually is the one who had the sketchbook that I turned into a journal and brought to write down what we did during the recording of Cracked Review. So there's that connection there. And
Cool.
We had a lot of people that were friends or girlfriends, in this case, that were from the New Jersey area. University of South Carolina, beautiful area where if you live up in the Northeast and you're trying to get away and you want to come down to a warmer climate, USC has always been a great destination. So we had tons of New Jersey friends and still do. And she was part of a crew that we're still friends with. We have a lot of mutual acquaintances, and even our kids, the kids of the people from New Jersey have come down and go to Clemson or USC. It's pretty beautiful. So yeah, she was an important person for me for many reasons back in that time. And it's a time of developing thoughts and failures. Certainly I had plenty of those. And so we move on and we write about it.
That's cool. That's cool. You've had such a great life. You still have a wonderful situation. You have a lot of peace in your life now. You've seen so much and done so much, played for two presidents, Grammys, all of this great stuff. Is there anything on like a bucket list, any top thing that you've always wanted to do that you haven't had the chance yet?
That's a very good question. I haven't really had bucket lists officially, but then when I got to see one of my favorite artists who I didn't think I would ever get to see in concert recently, called Joe Jackson, I was it was an artist that I knew was aging. He still puts out incredible, good new music, as well as the iconic stuff from the late 70s and 80s.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think my bucket lists are around musicians and bands, still wanting to capture and see the live performance. That's where it's at for me. My bucket lists end up being about 24 hours long. I wake up, I remember I'm an alcoholic who's choosing recovery, and there are solutions for my dumb problems. So I need to seek them. And so that's my daily chore, be a good husband, be a good father, write a cool song. And then, we get to still do some great things as a result of everybody that picked up a copy of Cracked Review. It all goes back to that, is that having a strong gratitude that we worked hard to get into the music business. We had an insane thing happen as a result of writing some good songs and working hard, and David Letterman and Atlantic Records, some really, and all of our fans. And that's important to us still. We're still highly grateful. It allowed us to make a music career. And so I guess maybe my bucket list is another Hootie tour if I could be
Wow.
so selfish.
That would be great, man. That would be great. You got a big show coming up. You got Hootie Fest. That's the first one, isn't it?
It's our second one. We did our
Okay.
first one last year, and so it's down in Cancun. It's a all-inclusive package deal. So you buy a certain amount of nights at this cool, affordable resort in Cancun, and you get to see some insane, great, mostly '90s acts. We got Goo Goo Dolls down this year, and Gin Blossoms and Everclear. We've got Bare Naked Ladies back,
Ah,
and I mean, it's just a
Toad.
great lineup.
Toad is Toad going to be there?
Toad was there
Toad?
last year and not
Okay.
coming back this year.
Okay.
And so, yeah, just go to the Hootie socials and you'll read all about it. Hootie
Yeah.
Fest. It's a
Yeah.
lot of fun and it's on the beach. I mean, it's just the best way to watch 4 nights of music.
That's just so cool. That's so cool. Where can we find all this stuff? Jim Sonefeld
Yeah,
.com is the website. You've also done stuff with Celebrate Recovery too. I want to touch on that a little bit. You've done some performance for that organization's 12-step program. Um, Anybody looking for help, anybody that's in a chemical situation that wants to find some hope, some help. Celebrate Recovery is a great place to go, isn't it?
yeah, it is. It's they claim solutions through the 12-step model from hurts, hangups, and habits. And I anybody that doesn't have any of those is lucky. But some of us get rather burdened with them, and one of those is addiction and chemical addiction, of course. But there's a lot of things out there that can get you tangled up. You know, from codependent relationships to trauma to pornography, sexual integrity issues, gambling. I mean, there's a lot, and they use the 12-step model in all these, and they also celebrate sort of spiritual music. So I get to go out and sing and give a testimony that to tell people, hey, here's who you thought I was, but take a look behind the curtain, and I'll tell you who I really was and how I found solutions to become something better. And so, yeah, Celebrate Recovery. I visit them all over the place to help give people inspiration. And yeah, you can find out. I post usually my visits on my Facebook page, Jim Sonefeld, and I'm on Instagram and Twitter. I'll occasionally delve into that world. And
Yeah.
yeah, just like to get the positive message. We make a lot of music videos to try and inspire people too. So we released a Christmas song recently called It's Love, and
Hmm?
trying to get people, even though here we are just probably passing Halloween, trying to get people inspired with the message of love during the Christmas season.
Yeah, it's so special, man. Sony, it's just awesome what you're doing. Love you to death for this. This is just a blessing to have you here. It really, really inspiring. A story that you have. Great book, of course. Everybody get out, get a copy of this, and get the audio book too. Because that is great. How was it reading your story? I love when authors, especially autobiographies, read their story because it's got to touch your heart when you're reading it too. And I kind of feel that in the voice. How was that for you? Did you enjoy that, or was it tedious? I'm sure it's a little tedious.
It's long. It is long, but it made me appreciate voice acting and those who do voiceovers or voice acting. It's an art form that's above my pay grade. I was able to pull it off with my book because these stories were natural to me. I'd been reading them in my kitchen for several years to Laura and getting feedback from her. So I was well aware of what the stories were, but it takes a little more work to sell it in a proper vocal sense. And so we spent a lot of hours and it was well worth it. I think in the end, they allowed me to be who I am, which is a guy who's got a crackly voice at times, who can be emotional at times. I'm the same stories I couldn't get through in my kitchen counter because they were too emotional. I couldn't get through my reading the book either. So we had a
Right.
few had to do some retakes because talking about the difficult times sometimes can just hit you, even though you're reading your own story. And so, but I'm glad I did it. Lord, and you need to be the voice. And I didn't get. I thought that's fine with me. I'm lazy enough, get somebody else to do. But a lot of people have commented they like the authenticity.
Oh, totally. I'm so glad you did it. Like I say, I was listening to it on the way to Kenosha, and it was sitting with a friend, and it's pretty awesome. Like now, it's so great to have you here, and it's so great to connect with you. And there's a special thing that you radiate, and thank you for sharing it for sure.
Thank you so much. Appreciate your time.
Yeah,
And
absolutely. Yeah, let's keep in touch, and whenever you release something, or you come to town again, I'll make sure to we can get together or something. That'd be great.
absolutely, absolutely. If you need anything in the Hootie world, uh, don't be afraid to reach back out.
All right. I appreciate you, Sony. Thank you. Yeah, I hope to see you soon.
Yeah, God bless, man. I'll
All
talk
right.
to you soon.
You too. Bye bye.
See ya.